There's a pasuk in this week's parsha. It's the first pasuk in Parak Mem. It's a very unusual pasuk. It's an innocuous pasuk. So you read the verse and you wouldn't make anything of it. It's impossible to translate the simple words of this pasuk. You ready? Biyom Chodesh Harishon Be'echad LaChodesh. It seems very innocuous. Biyom Chodesh Harishon, in the first month, Be'echad LaChodesh, on the first day of the month. By the way, what's the first day of the first month?
Nissan.
Today, now. But it doesn't say in the first month and the first day. It says Biyom Chodesh Harishon, the day of the first month. What in the world does that mean, the day of the first month? What do you mean the day of the first month? Which day? Just translate those three words. Biyom Chodesh Harishon, in the day of the first month. If it's a month, it's not a day. It should say B'chodesh Harishon, in the first month, Be'echad LaChodesh, on the first day of the month. There's an extra word. It should say B'chodesh Harishon Be'echad LaChodesh. What does it mean? Biyom Chodesh Harishon, on the day of the first month. What does that mean? You know, there's a very important halacha, many people's favorite halacha. Even though Nissan is a busy month, Meseches Soifrim teaches we do not say Tachanun the whole month of Nissan. Many people love this halacha. You know, they say there's a pleasure in life. A goy can never appreciate this pleasure. You ready? You're in a shul, and it's a Monday or Thursday Tachanun. It's a long Tachanun. People, you know, you could, if you do a test on people's moods, people are in better moods on Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday than Monday and Thursday. And all of a sudden, people start breathing very heavy at the end of the Chazarat Hashatz, preparing for the long Tachanun, and there's a guy in the back, he sheepishly raises his hand, Shalom Aleichem Rav, he says, you know, I just got married. Wow, Mazal Tov, everyone's ecstatic for the Chatan, and everybody's even happier that there's no Tachanun. Shalom Aleichem. Everybody enjoys this halacha, based on Mesachet Sofrim, that ein noflim al pneiim b'chol Chodesh Nisan. And the question is, why not? Why don't we say Tachanun in the month of Nisan? So the Mesachet Sofrim says the first 12 days of the month were the karbanot of the Nasiim. Each Nasi brought a karban to inaugurate the Mizbeach. And the Magen Avraham explains that when you bring a karban, it's like a Yom Tov for you. So therefore the first 12 days there's no Tachanun. That's the first 12 days. Erev Pesach, Yodaled Nisan is Erev Pesach. We don't say Tachanun. You have 7 days of Pesach, or in Chutz La'aretz it's 8 days. You have Isru Chag. Therefore, we don't say Tachanun in the month of Nisan. So the Beis Yosef asks, okay, that just explains certain days. Why don't we say Tachanun the whole month? Beis Yosef says, we don't say Tachanun. Hoyel v'yatzo roiv hachodesh b'kedusha. Since the majority of the month has a reason not to say Tachanun, therefore we don't say Tachanun the entire month. Which is very interesting. You know, since when do the laws of Tachanun go by Rov? Now, come the Acharonim, the Chassam Sofer brings this question, Shao Sichuvas Knesses Hagdoila, Sefer HaMinhagim of Rav Isaac Tirna, and they say, what about Yud Gimel? What about Yud Gimel Nisan? Why don't we say Tachanun on Yud Gimel Nisan? So the question is, what do you mean, why don't we say Tachanun on Yud Gimel Nisan? We just said the majority of the month has a reason not to say Tachanun. So, Hol v'yatza roiv hachodesh b'kedusha. What about the laws of roiv? Majority. Why do we care about Yud Gimel Nisan? It seems like, you ready for this chidush? A very important chidush. It seems like if we can't explain the 13th of Nisan, you don't have a rov. Because 12 days is not a rov. And then Erev Pesach, 7 days of Pesach, Isru Chag is 9 days. 9 days is not a rov. So you have 12 days. 12 is a miut. 9 days is a miut. You can't combine two miutim to create rov. That's what it seems like. So until we find the linchpin of Yud Gimel, see if we find a reason for Yud Gimel, then we go straight from the beginning of the Chodesh until Isru Chag on Chav Beis or Chav Gimel. But if you can't explain Yud Gimel, then you don't have a rov, because you can't combine miutim, meaning a small segment, to create a rov. You know what the proof to this idea is? I know you were thinking it. Chodesh Tishrei, right? I could tell. Chodesh Tishrei. Think about it. Well, you said it. I heard you murmur it. Yeah, you said Tishrei. Think about Chodesh Tishrei. You have 2 days Rosh Hashanah. You have Erev Yom Kippur. You have the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. The Ramah says we don't say Tachanun. You have 8 days of Sukkot. You have Isru Chag. You have the majority of the month. Yet we say Tachanun during Aseret Yimei Teshuvah and after Sukkot. Why? What about Rov? Must be that you don't have a Rov because you have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. You have 15 consecutive days from Erev Yom Kippur until Isru Chag Sukkot. And there are 30 days in Tishrei. Tishrei always has 30 days. 15 is not a Rov of 30. So you'll ask, but in Chutz La'aretz, you have 16 consecutive days. Yeah? You have Erev Yom Kippur, you have Yom Kippur, you have 4 days in between. And maybe the laws of Tachanun are not determined by Chutz La'aretz. Maybe it goes by Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael, you don't have a Rov. So why do you say Tachanun? Because you can't make a Rov out of Miyot v'Miyot. Be it as it may, all the Acharonim want to understand what's the reason we don't say Tachanun on Yud Gimel Nisan. You ready? I'm going to just tell you now, B'Kitzur Nimratz, 7 reasons why we don't say Tachanun on Yud Gimel Nisan. Ready? Very quickly. Number 1, Sefer HaMinhagim is a very early Sefer. Rabbi Isaac Terna, he said Yud Gimel is the Isru Chag of the Nasiim. The Nasiim brought Karbanot for 12 days, so the 13th is Isru Chag for the Nasiim. Or the Shlah HaKadosh says, Yud Gimel is Keneged Shevet Levi. So even though Shevet Levi did not bring a Karban, L'chanukat HaMizbeach, but their Chelek was the menorah, and that's dedicated for Yud Gimel Nisan. Chatam Sofer gives another 3 answers. Chatam Sofer says in his footnotes on Shulchan Aruch, number 1, when did the angels come to Avram Avinu to tell him he's going to have a kid? What day of the year was it? First day of Pesach. It was the 3rd day of Abraham's Milah, which means when was Abraham's Milah? Yud Gimel Nisan. So the first Milah in history was Yud Gimel Nisan. Or the last Nasi who brought his Karban, Achira ben Einan, L'Shevet Naftali, the Karban, the Achilat Karban was for 2 days. So even though the Karban was brought on the 12th, he could still eat it on the 13th. Or Chatam Sofer says there's an opinion of Rimi Korbil that the year we left Egypt, it was Erev Pesach Shechaliot b'Shabbat, and the Karban Pesach was brought on Yud Daled, but the Chagiga was brought on Yud Gimel. Okay. I want to share with you 2 original answers to this question of Yud Gimel. Okay. Somebody in Brooklyn. You ever hear of Brooklyn? There's a planet called New York. And in New York, there's a country called Brooklyn. Someone in Brooklyn, Reb Chaim Portowitz, said, if you look in Masechet Pesachim Daf Yud Gimel, the Gemara says, which day of the year were more Karbanot brought than any other day? Yud Gimel Nisan. The Gemara says Yud Gimel Amud Beis, because anyone who came to the Beit HaMikdash to bring the Karban Pesach, he possibly hasn't been in the Beit HaMikdash since Sukkot. What if he flew to I don't know where? He flew to Turkey. He has to bring the Karban Todah. So by the time Pesach comes, people besides bringing the Karban Pesach have to bring the Karban Todah. You can't bring Karban Todah on Pesach. You can't bring it on Erev Pesach. We don't say Mizmar LeTodah on Erev Pesach because there are a lot of loaves and you're not going to have time to eat it. So the last chance to bring the Karban Todah was Yud Gimel Nisan. The Gemara says Yud Gimel Nisan had more Karbanot than any other day. So in a way, that was also a great holiday. Yud Gimel Nisan was a great holiday because everybody brought the Karbanot. Now you ready for this? This is really an original reason for Yud Gimel Nisan. I would argue Yud Gimel Nisan is the happiest day of the year. Do you know that Yud Gimel Nisan is discussed in the Tanakh, in Megillat Esther? There's a man by the name of Haman. And he's, rolling the dice, trying to figure out a day that would be an appropriate day to kill the Jews. And the Gemara says, the Pasuk says, B'chodesh harishon hu Chodesh Nisan. Bishna Shneimesei Lamelech Achashverosh Hipil Pur Hu Hagoro. Yeah, it was the 13th of Nisan. Haman on the 13th of Nisan scheduled the annihilation of the Jews for 11 months later in Adar. He thought he was scheduling the annihilation of the Jews. Really, he was scheduling Purim. So what day was Purim established? Yud Gimel Nisan. So of course it's a holiday. I mean, who could forget about Purim? If you want to know, what day was Purim legislated? When did Haman make Purim? Yud Gimel Nisan. Okay, these are all reasons for Yud Gimel Nisan. Okay? So now we have 12 days. We have Yud Gimel. We have Erev Pesach. And we have Pesach. The only thing is, the last 7 days, we don't have a reason not to say Tachanun. But comes the Beis Yosef and he says, Hol v'yatsa roiv ha-chodesh b'kedusha. We go after roiv. There's a sefer called Maaseh Rokeach. Maaseh Rokeach does not buy the Beis Yosef svara of Hol v'yatsa roiv ha-chodesh b'kedusha. He doesn't accept that. Since when do the laws of Tachanun go by rov? And he says, if you look in Masechet Sofrim doesn't say the reason we don't say Tachanun is because of rov. Masechet Sofrim adds one thing. The Beit HaMikdash will be built in Chodesh Nisan. Okay, so what does that have to do with Tachanun? So Maaseh Rokeach, and the Chatam Sofer quotes this Maaseh Rokeach in his footnotes on Shulchan Aruch. Maaseh Rokeach says, I have a question for you. You know, we say, B'Nisan nigalu u'v'Nisan atidin ligal. We were redeemed in Nisan, we're destined to be redeemed in Nisan. When in Nisan? When? 15th. The 15th. B'Tezvav b'Nisan nigalu v'Tezvav b'Nisan atidin ligal. It's not just the month of Nisan in general. It's the first day of Pesach. In fact, Medrash Tanchuma says explicitly, B'Tezvav b'Nisan nigalu v'Tezvav b'Nisan atidin ligal. Says the Rokeach, V'ne'emar, Ki Fada Hashem Es Yaakov Ugalo Miyad Chazak Mimenu Baruch Atah Hashem Ga'al Yisrael. 15 words. Why? Because B'Tezvav B'Nisan Negalu B'Tezvav B'Nisan Asidin Ligoel. So the Beis HaMikdash will be built on the first day of Pesach. Very nice. When do we make the party? You can make the party on Pesach. Ein Ma'arvin Simcha B'Simcha. Says Maaseh Rokeach, the last 7 days of Nisan are reserved for the inauguration of the third Beit HaMikdash. Says the Maaseh Rokeach, Ve'im kain, we don't need to rely on the Beis Yosef svara of rov. Every single day of Nisan is already accounted for. Every single day of Nisan has a specific reason not to say Tachanun. Now, so I would like to share with you another reason why every day of Nisan is spectacular, and we don't need necessarily to come on to the reason of rov, but we could say every single day is special. We just read this morning. Listen carefully to the words. HaChodesh hazeh lachem. What are the next words? Rosh Chadashim. This month is for you Rosh Chodeshes. What does that mean, this month is for you Rosh Chodeshes? Shlach HaKadosh says, in the month of Nisan, every single day has Kedushat Rosh Chodesh. That's what it means. HaChodesh hazeh lachem. This month is for you, Rosh Chodesh. Every day has the Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh. According to that, we don't have to use rov. You don't have to say, well, most days are accounted for, so the other days just get pulled along. No, every day has its own independent reason. So let's just dig a little bit deeper into that idea. That in the month of Nisan, every single day has Kedushat Rosh Chodesh. Because Yaakov's getting very nervous. He gave this intro. I always quote these Sephardic rabbis. And here I'm quoting Chatam Sofer, all these Ashkenazic rabbis. So he's getting a little bit nervous. And look, he invited me, so we have to... Anybody know what month of the year did Avraham Avinu pass away? Yalkut Ruveni says Chodesh Teves. The remez is Hashem told Abraham Tikaver b'seva tova. Rashi Tevot Teves. Avraham Avinu passed away in Teves. Tikaver b'seva tova. It's brought in the Sefer of Rabbi Gil Halpern on his history work. He quotes the Yalkut Ruveni. The Chida wrote Hagaot on that Sefer. So Avram Avinu passed away in Teves. So comes the Ben Yehoyada, Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Daf Yud Aleph, and Ben Yehoyada says, "What? Avram Avinu passed away in Teves?" The Gemara said, "B'Nisan noldu ha'avot, b'Nisan metu ha'avot." That the Avos were born in Nisan and they died in Nisan. So how could the Medrash say that Avram Avinu passed away in Teves? No, Avram Avinu passed away in Nisan. It's a Gemara Mefureshes. Says Ben Yehoyada, and by the way, the Chayza of Lublin says the same thing. Ben Yehoyada says that the month of Teves, each day corresponds to a different month. Each day is like the Rosh Chodesh of a different month. So the first 12 days in, by the way, the way the Ben Yehoyada says it is, there are days in Nisan that correspond to Nisan. There are days in Nisan that correspond to Iyar. There are days in Nisan that correspond to Sivan. Avram Avinu passed away in Nisan on the day that corresponds to Teves, which the Chos of Lublin said the first 12 days corresponds to each month. In fact, he would be able to predict what would happen in Av based on what happened on the seventh day of on Nisan. He was able to see in each day what would happen in the future month. So Ben Yehoyada says that there are days in Nisan that correspond to Tevet. Avram Avinu passed away in Nisan on the day that corresponds to Tevet. I would say, which day in Nisan corresponds to Tevet? The first day of Nisan is the whole month of Nisan. The second day is Iyar. The third day is Sivan. The fourth is Tammuz. The fifth is Av. The sixth is Elul. The seventh is Tishrei. The 10th. The 10th is Teves. So Avram Avinu passed away on Shabbos Hagadol. 10th of Teves. Ooh, maybe the reason it's called Shabbos Hagadol is Avram Avinu in Tanakh is called Ha'adam Hagadol Ba'anakim. Avram Avinu is the one individual in the Tanakh who's called Gadol. So maybe it's called Shabbat Hagadol. It's the Shabbat of Avraham Avinu. So comes the Bnei Yisachar in Sefer Igra de Kala. And he says, now we could read the Pasuk in this week's Parsha. It should say, B'chodesh harishon be'echad HaChodesh. What does it mean? B'yom Chodesh harishon. On the day of the first month. What does that mean on the day of the first month? That means there's a day in Nisan that corresponds to the first month. What day of Nisan corresponds to the first month? Today. Now. The first day of, in other words, our question was, it should say, B'chodesh harishon be'echad HaChodesh. What does it mean? B'yom Chodesh harishon. What do you mean, B'yom Chodesh harishon? The answer is the first of Nisan is B'yom Chodesh Harishon. If you look in the Tshuvat Avnei Nezer, he writes in one of his Tshuvot, I'm sorry I didn't respond until now. It was the month of Nisan. Time is at a premium. He says, Kol sha'a b'Nisan liyom techashev. Each hour of Nisan is like a day. What does that mean? Nobody understands what he means. What does it mean? An hour in Nisan is like a day. The answer is, if each day in Nisan is a month, so each hour is like a day. So Chidushei Harim writes, the month of Nisan, he says, if we would only understand how important, how valuable, how powerful every moment of Chodesh Nisan was, we would not waste afilu raga. We would not waste even a moment. So this is the month that's predestined for Geula. Reb Shimon Schwab once had the zechut to spend Shabbat with Chafetz Chaim. And he asked the Chafetz Chaim, what does it mean, B'Nisan nigalu v'Nisan arsidan ligoyal? We wait for Mashiach every day. What do you mean we're going to be redeemed in Nisan? It can happen at any time. Chafetz Chaim said, the month of Nisan, you need to wake up in the morning and say, 50-50 it's happening today. That's what it means. It could happen any time, but the likelihood, the stakes are much higher. The probability rises in the month of Nisan. So we should be zocheh to take advantage of this special time of the year. Hashem should give us siyata d'shmaya to be mitzapel legula, mitzapel yeshua, and in the merit of being mitzapel yeshua, Yitah Kadosh Baruch Hu ki lishuatcha kivinu kol hayom, and that merit Hashem should bring us the Geula Shlema and the Binyan Beis Hamikdash Meher v'Yaminu Amen, so that the last 7 days of Nisan we should be zocheh for the Chanukah of the Bayis Hashlishi Sheyibaneh B'Meher v'Yaminu Amen.